Here we go, friends. We are now officially presenting our Base Building for Justice workshop. So thank you everyone who has been able to attend. And hopefully if you're at home watching this at a later time, you'll be joining us for our Base Building initiative. This call or this presentation is being recorded for those of you that are on the call. So like I said, if you don't want to be on camera, please turn your camera off. And if you're not speaking, we please ask that you remain muted. So before we get started, by the way, my name is Nia Adams. I'm the Membership and Community Coordinator here with the Long Island Progressive Coalition. And I also want to introduce our newest staff member and climate organizer, Monique. So Monique, say a thing.
Hi, everyone. Monique, and I am happily newly climate justice organizer here on at LIPC. So I'll be chatting with you.
And also on the call is the supportive team of LIPC, our current board members, former board members, and organizers, communications. Everybody is a happy LIPC family. So as we get started, oh, I should move this. Welcome to the team. You have now entered into our base building workshop as folks who are interested in joining us as an organization, as a community to build together for justice across the island. These are some quick community agreements that generally kind of inform some of the work that we do, right? So when we have meetings, we have this thing called one mic, right? One person speaking at a time, but also active listening. We want to be comprehensively listening to folks. Knowing that the Long Island Progressive Coalition is a community collaboration, meaning we are co-organizers, co-conspirators, we work together, very much so like these beautiful Power Rangers on this slide. Fun fact, my first Halloween costume was the blue Power Ranger. So I felt very strong about the color blue. Impact over intent is, you might have heard oops and ouch is about, you may hear Android say things that may not come out the way that you meant it. And we want to, be sure that we understand that the intent might not be to be harmful, but the impact is what matters. And we are in principled struggle. And so there's a variety of things that fall under this, be honest and direct while holding compassion, be responsible for your own feelings, seek deeper understanding, so on and so forth. And if you want to speak further, we're always open to having, one-on-one conversations with you, and we encourage it. And before we get started, as a practice, we like to acknowledge that as a settler state, the United States is, stolen Indigenous land. Long Island is stolen Indigenous land. And so we like to start our meetings with land acknowledgements, which Monique and I will read with you all. And Sarika, whom is a board member at the Long Island Progressive Coalition, will be dropping links for you to both identify what native land you currently occupy. As for myself, where I live, I'm on historically Matinecock land. And another link will be dropped to support the Shinnecock Land Trust. The Shinnecock are one of the indigenous nations here on Long Island. So I guess we'll popcorn back and forth, Monique. So I will start. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. This is important when reflecting on Long Island, which in itself is a colonial name. The Indigenous name for this territory is Pamanok, Wampanoag, or Siwanhaki. And I'll popcorn it to Monique.
Yes, to recognize the land as an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territories you reside on, and a way of honoring the indigenous people who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation.
When European settlers arrived, Siwanhaki was an island already inhabited by Lenape and Mohegan Pequot nations and kinship bands commonly identified as the Canarsie, Rockaways, the Merricks, Massapequas, Matinecoks, Nisaquags, Korchogs, Secatogs, Unkachog, Settlecot, Shinnecock, Montaukett, and the Manhassets. So we hope that you use those links that we've provided to expand your knowledge and your orientation around Indigenous people and lands. The Jemez principles for democratic organizing was shared with many of you prior to this call. These are kind of principles that we live by in organizing to help us be more intentional with one another. We won't read this in full length for time purposes, but for this first slide, it's be inclusive, emphasis on bottom-up organizing. This is not hierarchical, and really we should be thinking about like, horizontal organizing, right? That we're all together. And let people speak for themselves, don't speak for other folks. Work together in solidarity and mutuality. Build just relationships among ourselves, and we will be talking about this in length during this workshop about what it means to base build and have relational organizing, and commitment to self-transformation. So LIPC, who are we? The Long Island Progressive Coalition is a member-based organization taking on big issues statewide and locally, the issues that are at the center of transforming our communities for the better, issues that will achieve social, racial, economic, and environmental justice. Our power comes from the grassroots, with people coming together to push the edge of what is possible. I'll popcorn it to my coworker Monique if you want to read our mission and vision.
Sure. So our mission is the Long Island Progressive Coalition fights for a structural change at the local, state, and national levels to attain racial justice, build community wealth, and realize a just transition to 100% renewable energy future. We mobilize Long Islanders through political education, grassroots organizing, leadership development, and the creation of cooperative economics institutions to redistribute wealth and power. Our vision at Long Island Progressive Coalition is we envision an equitable, sustainable, and cooperative society rooted in racial, economic, and social justice, where all people thrive and live with dignity.
Thank you, Mo. And so here are some beautiful pictures of actions we did just over the course of the last year, as you can tell with our mask. We have Thrive Agenda, climate justice jobs, Make Billionaires Pay. We have education justice. We had some of the most underfunded and inequitable school districts in the state right here in Long Island. Justice for Akbar Rogers, which was a unarmed Black man that was brutalized by the Freeport Police Department in December of 2019. And we've been working with him and his team since then. Clean Slate New York, which is an ongoing campaign that we're really excited about. And of course, the legalization of adult use cannabis made possible by the MRTA, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. And then the center one was, I believe, Juneteenth here as it was declared in New York as a state holiday. So we are outside and we are doing a lot of issues simultaneously because we understand that all of these justice issues intersect with one another. And so how we do what we do, as I'm speaking about intersections. So we lead with an intersectional racial justice lens. It's impossible to achieve long-term systemic change without explicitly addressing racism. And this has been the blueprint for systems of oppression that have targeted a variety of marginalized communities, including marginalized genders, immigrants, differently abled people, the LGBTQIA community, and all marginalized communities at all their intersections. And speaking about intersectional organizing and intersectionality, that term was actually coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who is a professor at UCLA, who specializes in critical race theory, which you may have heard of most recently during this past year, the pushback on critical race theory as it's taught or not taught in school curriculum. But about examining society and culture as it relates to race, law, and power. And so intersectionality theory she introduced this as, very much so as it relates to feminism and how Black women experience the world, but actually all the intersections, the study of overlapping or intersecting social identities, particularly of racial identities, and how they relate to systems and structures of oppression, domination, or discrimination. In some ways, it's what Claudia Jones was speaking about, who's another phenomenal woman organizer. And so, deep breath. That was a lot to take in. And we're here to talk to you today about what we're building and what our base building initiatives are. So let me pass it off.
Great. So our base building. So what are we building? Mary said it all, so I don't think I have to. We can all go home now, right? But we are building a base of folks who will be out there and help build this movement through the lens of intersectionality. And here at LIPC, we do have a focus on climate justice and our climate initiatives. However, we also have to, again, like Nia said, take a deep pause and realize how these things are showing up in our communities of color, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and those communities, so that we are not just looking at this in a silo, but in a way that relates to people who we want to ultimately relate to. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so climate justice. I am a climate justice organizer. However, climate justice is like a term that was born out of the broader term of environmental justice. And I felt that was important for us to speak about here, because when we are talking about relating to folks and going out to canvas in neighborhoods, many people relate to climate or climate justice in the way that it shows up in the forms of pollution and toxins in their neighborhood. So environmental justice is a term that basically has been around longer than climate justice in the ways of it being coined a term. And here on this slide, I just have a quote from Dr. Robert Bolyard. He is said to be like the father of the term environmental justice. And what he says here is, whether by conscious design or institutional neglect, communities of color in urban ghettos, in rural poverty pockets, or in economically impoverished Native American reservations face some of the worst environmental devastation in the nation. So again, the environmental justice could be that term and how it has been used even before the term was actually coined, dates back to the 60s and the sanitation workers strike in Memphis in 1968. And also in 1982, I believe, yes, That term was also used to, was used in a fight against a landfill in Warren County, North Carolina. So this term has been used for a while, and then climate justice came about, that term came about in the late 1999, and was used at the COP6 conference in 2000. So this quote here is from the Greenhouse Gangsters article, Greenhouse Gangsters versus Climate Justice article. And basically it says, on a global scale, climate change is likely to be the biggest environmental justice issue ever. So again, it's just going to speak, it's just speaking to the fact that what people are facing on the ground may speak or may be more relatable to them getting into the work of climate change and climate justice. So we can go to the next slide. So here at LIPC, our focus with climate justice are with these initiatives or campaigns that we've been working on. So here are the campaigns, and that picture is from one of the first actions, or the first action that I did as a climate justice organizer here. We were in front of Lee Zeldin's office, and we were fighting, we still are fighting for green jobs and care jobs through this reconciliation bill. So we work with organizations like the Green New Deal Network, and here in New York, the organization New York Renews, we are a coalition member. And we are fighting to make sure the CLCPA that was passed last year is implemented in a way that it was intended to. So a lot of our work is around making sure the implementation is rolled out properly. And we're also working on the CCIA, which is legislation that hasn't passed yet, but we are focusing on getting that passed this year. And that is basically to make the polluters pay. So a portion of the CLCPA is to ensure that 35% to 40% of the investment goes to frontline communities. So communities that have been historically polluted by these polluters and making these polluters pay for that, and those funds going directly to those communities. So we have a lot to fight when it comes down to those two pieces of legislation. One that has already been passed and making sure it's implemented correctly, and two, to make sure that the CCIA, which is the investment arm of the CLCPA implementation, making sure that passed this year. So there's a lot going on with that, and that is a lot of what we do in our climate work. But in addition to that, we are also working on Power Up Solar. And with that, that's just trying to make sure that communities who are still historically left out of just transitions and transition to renewable energy are able to access it. So we work with faith-based organizations and nonprofits to help them get through the process of obtaining solar for their organizations a little bit more seamlessly. And then we also have the LIPA Public Power. So we're working on democratizing the LIPA, our energy, and making sure that we are able to have a public power structure on Long Island. So those two, and then we have a Brookhaven landfill. So the Brookhaven landfill is my place of origin. I live near this landfill, and that's how I got started with climate work and environmental justice. So the landfill has been around for 50 years, and we are supporting those people on the front lines of this fight to get that landfill closed, cleaned up, and so that we invest in that community and the communities that have been disproportionately affected by the landfill. So we can go to the next slide. So let's map it out. So the communities that we will be focusing on, we will start this deep canvas in these 3 areas. I don't know if you can see them very clearly, but the first one on the left is Westbury. The one in the middle, we will be moving towards after that, which is Huntington Station. And then the last one is Freeport. So what you may not notice about these maps is that the areas that we're going into are highlighted in purple because this is a map that comes from the New York State DEC website. And it shows that these areas are potential environmental justice areas. So basically these areas are, by the DEC standards, are already being impacted by environmental concerns. And so it's up to us as canvassers to see if the people in these communities, how this is showing up for them and what they know about the environmental injustices in their area, and support them in making sure that their voices are heard and that they are able to build solutions around how to change these areas from being so heavily polluted. So we can go to the next slide. Now with these communities that we're going into, one of the things about them is the fact that these communities, as we may know as Long Islanders, Long Island is one of the most segregated communities or geographic areas in the country. And these areas have been redlined. And here's just showing that historically redlined communities are hotter. They are 5 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than neighboring communities. So it's just something to note and to share with folks as we go out on our canvases, that whether or not we all know what the environmental impacts are, whether we know, that there is, like in Westbury, that there's Covanta incinerator polluting our neighborhoods, or if it's the industrial areas that we live near that are polluting our areas, but they are being impacted, and there's something that we can do together to solve it. So our deep canvas, and it's a quote from Kwame Nkrumah: "The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart." So that's a cool quote. What is deep canvassing? So deep canvassing is not just going to people's homes and getting their names and writing them down for later. Deep canvassing is, and the way that we are rolling it out, is that we are going to have deep conversations and build a rapport and understand where the people on the other side of the door are finding themselves, like what is showing up in their lives, not just the climate, but everything that they are dealing with, because we know that these issues compound on each other, and we don't have the luxury or privilege to fight these things in silos. We have to fight them as a unit and heal holistically. So when we canvass, we want to canvass and speak to folks, but mostly we want to listen to what people have to say. So how do we do that? So part of it is strategize, right? So here we have PSA, which is problem, solution, action. How do we talk to folks so that they will let us know what the problems are? And how do we talk to folks to support them in finding these solutions? And what do we do to help them get these solutions implemented? So that's our way of strategizing around problem, solution, and action. So Next, we have a script. So we have a loose script that we will forward to everyone so that they can kind of get familiarized with, who we are as LIPC. So folks have something that they can have tangible when they go into the doors. But really, we want, as I said before, we want people to, we want the canvassers to listen to the people behind the doors. And we want to make sure that we allow for a lot of engagement and, listening with 2 ears and speaking with 1 mouth, right? So here is a sample script. I'm not really going to go into it. Like I said, we're going to email that to you so you have something to walk with. But we want to encourage you to read it over, but also to just make it your own, speak in your own voice. It's hard for any one person to write a script to speak for a lot of people because we all don't talk the same. We don't all have the same type of rhythm with our tone. We don't all speak in the same, tongue. So we have to make sure that what we're saying comes out genuine, and not only make sure that what we say is coming out genuine, but actually be genuine when you're going to the doors. So me and Nia is going to do a little role play for you all.
Yay. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for now so that we can do our role play. And at first, I will be the person in the home, and you'll be the canvasser. As much as canvassing is like you get like butterflies, like you're like, oh crap, I don't want to knock on people's doors. But you would be surprised like how many good conversations you have with people, the relationships you will build, and how they'll continue to engage and organize, especially if we're looking at it through an intersectional lens or what have you. And the first place that we are going is Westbury, which we did do a deep canvas in 2018. So we already have somewhat good relationships in that community. I do want to preface it before we start our role play that Westbury is particularly the area that we'll be engaging with is a community of color. There's a huge Black American community, Haitian Creole, and Spanish speaking community. We don't currently have the capacity for language access, but if you know people who want to get involved and do have that capability, it would be much appreciated. And you can reach out to either myself or Monique. But yeah, ring my bell or whatever. I'm at home. I'm chilling. I'm living my life.
Ring, ring, ring.
Oh, hello.
Hi, my name is Monique. I am an organizer at Long Island Progressive Coalition. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm great. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Long Island Progressive Coalition is an organization here on Long Island, and we've been working with communities such as the community in Westbury to hear what's going on in the community so that we can help support and bring about some change regarding climate and social justice issues. How do you feel about that?
I think I remember you guys from a while ago, and I've seen some of the work you've done over the year. I don't know a lot about climate justice, though.
That's great. A lot of us, when we come into this work, we don't know all the things that are going on around us, but there's some things that we could point you to just, familiarize you with some of the things that are going on. But I know even if we don't know what exactly the industrial or the pollutants are, many times we feel it in our health. So I don't know if
pollutants. I know about pollutants. There's trash on my street, there's mold in my bathroom, and like every time it rains, my like driveway and everything floods into my garage and stuff. So I have to deal with that, all the time.
Yeah, so that's definitely what those types of things are the things that we want to help focus on and just try to bring solutions to this community. And I'm pretty sure that you have talked to either your family and your friends and your neighbors about some of the things that could help and something that
Yeah, I
would.
mean, I don't understand why they don't have a community cleanup. My grandma lives down the street, and my family's been here for 50 years. Um, and it's like the town doesn't care what happens, over here in Newcastle.
I hear you. I definitely I feel you on that. You know, my neighborhood is similar to Westbury, and our town officials don't seem to hear us as well. So you know, we're all about people power, and the more people that we have banding together, the easier it is to combat these things as a unit. So is that something that you would be interested in working with us, or us working with you and your family members on?
I mean, if it's gonna make my community look better, yeah. Because like I said, my family's been here for 50 years and I want to be here for 50 more. And I don't want my property taxes or property value to go down because it always floods when it rains, or there's trash and stuff. I'm sure that's affecting like our health and stuff. My cousin Alicia has asthma, so you have mold in the bathroom. We've been talking to the landlord, and yeah, I guess.
Yes, asthma is one of the big health risks that we face in our communities because of the toxins that are in the air. And, you know, even our water has been affected by toxins from these big corporations that, you know, just do whatever they want and pass along the toxins and the consequences onto our communities. So we definitely need all that we have here in this community to fight them. You know, they have money, but we have people.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'll sign up. I'll see. I'll
All
talk to somebody.
all right, so I'll just take your name, your information, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. All right, and scene. Clearly, we have Angela Bassett vibes. I deserve an Oscar. She deserves an Oscar. But that's a different conversation for another day. But that was great. Thank you. So I don't know how many folks either who are live with us tonight or who are, watching later on have canvassed before, but a lot of it is about really listening to the person at the door and honestly asking follow-up questions about like the things that they're saying. And because we are a multi-issue organization, like, yes, we are doing this base building effort with a focus on climate justice, particularly because, Black, Indigenous, people of color have often not been centered in climate justice, although that they're the ones that are most impacted. But we are also a multi-issue organization, which means we are also will be talking about education, policing and public safety, economic justice as we work on, the Invest in Our New York Act. And so all of those things, which makes it kind of great when you're talking to people at the door, because maybe they don't want to talk about one thing or another. And just being clear about, we are a comprehensive multi-issue social justice organization, which means this is not a la carte organization. And so if you identify with our mission and vision as an organization, you identify with our stances on criminal justice or the criminal legal system, on climate and environmental justice and sustainability, on Indigenous sovereignty, economic justice, so on and so forth. Did you wanna switch, or do we wanna move forward?
I'm good to move forward,
Okay.
unless you're doing your Angela thing and.
A little Angela, a little Kerry Washington or something, but I'll wait. Well, I won't give everybody all my fantastic acting skills. Another fun fact, I was a theater geek in school and I do belong to International Thespian Society, just so you know. the more you know. All right, so then back to sharing my screen, right? So that was somewhat of our role play, right? The best practice really is getting on the doors and having real conversations with people. I've had amazing conversations with people, quote unquote, at the door, in the park, or what have you. You'd be surprised how much people want to chat with you. And I imagine after the year that we've had with us being inside so much, that people will continue to want to chat with us. So that being said, before we commence this part of the workshop and the recording, we want to talk about our safety protocol. So here is my Lord and Savior, Beyonce Giselle Knowles. And she wears a mask, even though she's vaccinated, in an elevator, presumably with only one other person. So for COVID safety protocols, we require canvassers to wear masks of your choosing at the doors. For your safety and for the safety of the community. We know that there are inequities to people who have had access to the vaccine, who feel comfortable with the vaccine, and the communities that we're going to, even initially starting with participants can now see your application, who in Westbury was one of the hardest hit communities in Long Island with COVID-19. A lot of people suffered with the virus and have continual long COVID. So it's really out of respect for that, marginalized communities, and that you step back when you knock on the doors, which we always do. You never want to knock or ring on someone's doorbell and be right up on the door. No one wants to open the door to that. So the etiquette of door knocking, canvassing, is to knock whatever and back up into a way so that they can see you from the the door window or what have you, that they have a safety, a buffer. And then these are some of the do's and don'ts. I won't go into them in length because you received the do and don'ts prior to this meeting. But they're pretty, navigate your safety, right? Don't enter anyone's home, which is, you'd be surprised how many people will actually invite you to come and sit in their home. Don't take things personal if people are rude. Don't get agitated or aggressive or in people's personal space. The general protocol around approaching houses is if their fence is closed, we don't enter, right? Like, we don't open people's front yard fences, but if it's opened or if the driveway leads to the, the door or what have you, that's something we may engage. Try to remain positive and pleasant, keep your cool. All the things you learned in kindergarten. And then here are some levels of engagement. So we understand that people, given their own resources and capacity, don't always have the ability to engage in community organizing and social justice efforts the way that they wish. Also, this is a beautiful picture of us out in the Hamptons last summer to Tax the Rich. That was a fun time. Anywho, so there are a multitude of ways people can be engaged in, community organizing, base building, and uplifting of various campaigns and initiatives. So there's always, membership dues and donations, because it does, it funds the work that we do. It's better to be funded by community than by billionaires. Letters to the editor and opinion editorials, which would be if you, don't have the capacity to join meetings or go out, but you do, you feel very strongly about a thing and you like, well, I can write this letter to the editor and I can send it into Newsday or what have you. We're always looking for, research, particularly when we're getting prepared to testify at the legislature, what have you. Having that research, you want to have all your T's crossed and I's dotted. Phone banking and canvassing, which is door knocking, and which is this first kind of initiative that we're taking with our base building. really getting back out and getting to know people. And so we are actually going to be starting this tomorrow evening at 4, from 4 to 6 in Westbury. And this will be a weekly canvas. So if you can't make it, tomorrow, but you can make it next week or what have you, we'll be discussing that after this. Testimony, like I said, at the ledges and what have you, attending rallies, protests, and press conferences, speaking at public events. Like, I know you saw some photos of us at Actions, maybe me holding a blowhorn or what have you, but we would really love if you were holding the blowhorn, because we're all in this together. Like I said, this is a co-collaboration. And lobbying with elected officials on a variety of campaign issues. So meeting with your senator and or assembly person or county legislator, which is all of it's, via Zoom at this point, calling their offices, emailing them about issues. And we do have toolkits will help you if you need more information about things. That's not a problem. If you want to plan meetings, with your friends. So I know when I do my, when I send my emails and do phone calls to even to the, the governor's office or to Tish James, the AG, and then I'll get my aunt and my uncle to do it and my cousins to do it. And, be like, I know that they got at least 5 calls or what have you that evening. So those are just levels of engagement. So you pick, I don't want to say pick your poison because it's a fun time, but and that kind of concludes this section of our workshop. So thank you. Also, this is like my pantheon of women. So Meg the Stallion, because obviously, and Rihanna, who's never going to give us music ever again. But if you want to stay up to date with us, you can follow us on social media. On Instagram and Twitter, we are at LI Progress. On Facebook, we are the Long Island Progressive Coalition, and our website is lipc.org.